everyone. My name is Jérome Franck-Sætervoll. I'm the CEO of RiksTV. And I'm here to tell you about our journey into agility over the past years. But I would like to start with a disclaimer first. I've been working in that company for about 13 years. And so I have absolutely no doubt all the problems I'm going to tell you about have been parts of it. And I've had my share of them. Yes. What I'm going to go through is the journey that started pretty much 4 or 5 years ago. How we started by doing some test experiments, how we introduced some organization changes, how we tweaked and adjusted the way we were doing things, and maybe some thoughts about where we are now and where we are going into. This is where we are coming from. We were a pure digital TV operator, just DTT operator. We launched in 2007. We had about 40 linear TV channels on the DTT network. Quite easy and very traditional operation. Today, we are there. We were the first Norwegian company to launch a pure web TV aggregator in the market, Stream. And so we accomplished a lot between those years and had a pretty impressive journey from being very traditional to being a very modern company. It started back then in 2014 approximately. We were, as we can describe ourselves at that time, a dinosaur, or a small dinosaur. As you can see, we only had 50 employees, so small company, small dinosaur. And we had absolutely 0 developer, which is maybe not the best place where you want to start. We had launched traditional DTT services in 2007. Other people have been through this, but one of our main issues at that time was we were leaning on different divisions, and divisions were working as silos. You know, they had their own organization, they had their own goals. They were talking quite badly with each other. Also, what we saw is that the landscape was changing very rapidly. We were competing against those guys, big established actors, and then suddenly we were competing with everybody. Streaming was coming and competition opened up. So how would we manage to win in the market being what we were at that time? What we saw is that our competitors, Get, which is the main Norwegian cable company, they were saying that there are 200 people working on their new TV platform at that time. We were 50. So that's a challenge, obviously. Then we also saw that our main competitor, Canal Digital Satellite, launched a project called Snowflake. And so very modestly, we launched our own project, which we called Snowplow. We'll tell you how it went. Then we looked around and we looked at those companies, those great companies that were examples in the Nordic. Spotify, Finn, examples on how you should work, agility. That's great examples. So let's do what they are doing, you know. Let's introduce agile. We will work like that. We will have sprint. We will have stand-up. We will introduce Scrum. It will be great. Yes. That was the start. And we put it on the organization. We had a new project. The project was across the different silos. We had a Styringsgruppe, which is like a board of ownership. Lots of leaders who would have their say on how the project was doing. So we started. And then we came to that number. Does anybody want to tell me what that number is? That ratio? 2 to 1. Nobody has come across such a number before? I think everybody around here has experienced it. That was the number of leaders per IT developer. So not down to have a great success. And indeed, that's what happened. 1.5 years, it was very difficult times, still no launch. When we launched, the product we launched with was not really meant to be launched for the market. The idea was that you would control your set-top box with your iPad. It's good for us, but the customers really didn't care that much about it. So that's where we were after lots of efforts and trying to compete out there. So the good news is that it took us to our first turning point or revelation or pivot, as other people would call it. What we really discovered is that we were focusing on the top part of the iceberg. We were focusing on the best practices. We were focusing on Scrum. We were focusing on doing the obvious things, like having stand-ups and stuff like that. But then we were totally lagging we're totally lagging on everything that was under the water, and which is actually the essential part of it, the cultural part of it. You know, the values, the trust, the transparency. What do you really build those principles on? So what we did is that we started by a first test. You know, this is something new to us, so let's start somewhere where it makes sense. So we had the first test. We picked one team who was doing one product, and we started doing something that's quite classical at that time, which is interdisciplinary team. So we had front-end, back-end, UX, test, people who were doing maintenance, and so on. The team had the goal. The goal was discussed with the management, their ownership of their goal, and they had what it took to achieve their goal. And what we found out is that it worked. It worked very fast, and it was a really great journey. The team was happy, and they delivered great results very fast. One of the things we saw very fast is that the retention rates on the app increased by 5 times within 6 months. It's not only the organization who did that, but it was a huge part of it. That we had a team who could actually own their own goals and actually have the means to deliver on them. That was a very important part of it. So based on that, we did something that's quite unique out there. We went all in. We saw that it was working, people were happy about it, it gave results. So we decided to take the whole company in that direction. So from an organization that was quite classical and quite hierarchical, we went to an organization, those drawings you've probably seen before, they're from Spotify, where we not only had a few teams working like that, but the whole organization working like that. From customer service to finance to product development. Multidisciplinary teams and agile coach and product owners were focusing on the results. So we introduced that. What was essential there was that Northern Star. It was essential for the company that we had to discuss what is the one goal or the main goals that we're going for, discuss a lot about it, be open, be challenged, have everybody owning those goals, but also at the team level. All the teams, they had their own goals, and they were owning the goals, and they were discussing with the stakeholders. What was also truly essential in that journey was transparency and trust. I mean, these might be quite simple words, but to have real transparency in an organization is not easy. It's something that you do every day, from the small occasions to the big occasions, to how you communicate, for example, on communication tools like Slack, to having open meetings, open stand-ups, to presenting your results to the whole organization, to being transparent about what are your goals, what you're achieving, what you failed with, and what you're going to do in the next period. And this enables you to get more and more trust. But somewhere along that path, we discovered that maybe we were building also new silos. Are the teams the new silos? I mean, the teams are their own goals. They were autonomous. How do you make 3 teams who are going in maybe 2 different directions to work together? So we realized that on that pyramid, we were on our way to being a traditional, to being organized towards autonomous teams. And that wasn't working all that great in the big picture. And so we decided that we were going to work towards a more network and dynamic organization. We need to be better at working together. The teams, each on their own, were doing good, but the organization needs to be better at working together and going for the same goals, mobilizing together. And what's key in that process, that's the alignment processes. That is discussing together, all together, everybody in the company is involved in that process. Which goals do we have for the next period? What do we prioritize? What is it that we're not going to prioritize? How do we organize? Who is going to work on that? We're open about that. We're explaining. We're getting challenged. It might take a while to agree, but in the end, we are aligned. So we're working towards network and better goals together. And in that process, we introduced something that's a twist of the previous model, which was focus teams, which is based on the idea that you can have a primary team and a secondary team. And the idea with the focus team is that you're going, in that one period, you're going to focus on this goal together. Again, across teams. Get people together from across the organization, put them together. They would spend most of their time together in that one period, even though they belong to a different team, and they might go back to that team or go somewhere else after the next period. So that's been pretty much our main journey towards being what we think we're starting to look like, a gazelle, still very humble, and going away from being that small dinosaur. So you're probably thinking, yeah, well, that's a lot of words. It's interesting, but did it work? That is probably the main question. Actually, what we were looking at a couple of indicators. The first one is how people are thriving in the company. So we've been measuring that consistently over the years. And on a scale from 1 to 10, today we are above 9. It's very impressive numbers. We had good numbers 4 years ago, but they've increased and increased. And our journey is part of what we see here. So our employees, people working in RiksTV, they love that way of working. The second part is that it works also for the customers. In 2018, we won the prize for highest customer satisfaction in our industry. That was the first time in our history that we did that, and we were extremely proud of it. And as you can see on that graph, the steeple line is the RiksTV's trend over the last past years. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've outperformed the rest of the industry. So we think those two things work together. That if you find a way that people are going to be happier about, they're going to take more responsibility, it's going to give great results, and in the end, your customers are going to be happier about it. And then back to that example that I was showing in the beginning. This is a picture taken from a postdoctoral professor, a researcher who was giving a class to some economy students. And as you can see on his slide, he was showing best practices about how to work in a new or agile way. And he had Spotify and Finn and RiksTV. So when we saw that picture at the office, I can assure you that we were quite proud of it. That's been a long journey to get there. Challenges, yes. I could spend many days talking about those, so I will try to be short and talk about the main ones. The first one is that it's not for everybody. Agility means that it's a very strict way of being, and you need to be responsible in front of each other. It's quite transparent. It's very difficult to hide. You need to like to work in an open environment. You need to like to work in a team and to show your results. and to explain to everybody what you're going to do and discuss with the people in your team and outside your team what you're doing and what you could do differently. So it's not for everybody. In those years, we've got many people who've quit and many people who've come to our company because it's the way they want to work and they think it's more interesting to work in that way. The second challenge or pitfall is that it's always between the old way and the new way. I mean, as I said in the beginning, I've been part of the problems for many, many years, and I still am. And we still always want to go back to the old way. So it's always a fight on, now we want to launch this thing in 6 months. Well, how do we start? Should we have a project leader? Should we hire a consultant to do this? And you always want to go back to where you were a few years ago. And the third problem that I want to talk about is selective agility. It might be difficult to understand the concept, but if you think, for example, of testing, I mean, everybody's talking about testing, and it's fine. Testing is agile. But the thing is that if you're just picking one part of it, and if you don't define what you want to achieve with the test, if you don't make sure that the test is done in a rigorous way, that you're measuring the results, and that you actually discuss the results, then the test is just worthless. You've just used time to do some tests, but you can't use it for anything. So selective agility, it's one of the big problems that we're facing. And to finish, I would just like to give some tips for everybody around here who's interested in going that way. The first one is to have an open dialogue. Talk about why all the time. Why are we doing this way? Why are we working this way? Why do we want to prioritize this? Why are our goals these? Spend a lot of time opening up and discussing with the organization. Test, test, test. If you're unsure, test. Do it in a right way. Start in a small scale, and then if you see that it works, try to make it bigger. Always evaluate. No test without evaluation. The next point is also very important. Get inspired. Just don't copy. I mean, you've got lots of examples around there of people who've done it in one way, who've done great in one way. But it works for them. Every company is very particular. So just don't copy what other people have done. Do it your way. And do it with your own resources. And own the journey yourself. And then the last part, be patient. As you've seen, it took many years. It's still going to take many years. This is not from one place to the other. It's a continuous journey. So be patient. But it's definitely worth the time. So I encourage everybody who's not there yet to go in that direction. It's a great way of working. And I'll be more than happy to come back in 4 or 5 years and explain how our journey into agility has developed over the next years. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.